Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, May 16th through Sunday, May 22nd. This week, the shiitake mushrooms are hitting the fan, so to speak. I know that was cheesy, but it's hard for me to describe just how intense everything is. And I think really I shouldn't even need to necessarily. I think it's something that we're all experiencing in a very dramatic way. Now, the way that we are experiencing this intensity of the current time will be a little bit different for all of us. It, of course, depends on where these transits and aspects are occurring relative to our own natal charts. But there are some definitely shared themes that I would be more than happy to cover. So, why all the intensity? I would sort of attribute it to two main factors. One is, of course, the eclipse season. We have a full moon, a lunar eclipse happening this week at 25 degrees Scorpio. And this one is, even all eclipses are intense, but this one in particular is very intense for a couple reasons. And I'm actually just going to save that until I get to Monday's forecast because I'll explain that in just a couple moments here. I'll get more in depth into the full moon lunar eclipse. But I just want to say before I get into the day by day that it is very intense. Don't get that wrong at all. And if you're watching this, it means that the eclipse is either just upon us because as I'm filming this, as I'm making this video, the eclipse is happening tonight. So the eclipse, as you're watching this, either is about to happen or it's already occurred. So it is definitely relevant here. The second thing to kind of attribute all this intensity to would be Mercury retrograde. It's pretty crazy having Mercury turning retrograde and the eclipse season happening at the same time. But that's what's happening. And this week Mercury will retrograde back into Taurus, so it's going backward. It's going from Gemini back into Taurus. So we're revisiting things. The full moon lunar eclipse, I would say, is kind of throwing a lot of new information at us, a lot of maybe secrets that we're uncovering, or profound realizations or awakenings. So kind of new stuff happening, as I often say. But Mercury retrograde is turning backward, and I guess kind of showing us new information relative to things that have already happened. So maybe our past, what has already occurred in our lives, maybe emotionally. And a lot of it pertains to how we support ourselves because that is the main theme I would say is that's explored by the Taurus Scorpio axis. How do we support ourselves? A lot of that is financial. How do we, relate to our resources, our time, money, and energy? But also, how do we support ourselves emotionally? That's really what Taurus and Scorpio are all about. And not only is the full moon lunar eclipse highlighting that axis, but Mercury turning retrograde and re-entering Taurus is bringing the focus there as well. Is there something that we missed before? Are we not supporting ourselves very strongly or accurately, or maybe in the most ideal way? And there are a lot of general implications to this as well. I wanted to give some kind of basic advice for Mercury retrograde. Many astrologers will say don't start things. It's not a good time for initiating. And I would have to agree. Generally speaking, there are a few circumstances that might be exceptions, but in general, if you do have a new job that's kind of starting to, almost happening, or you want to maybe end a relationship or start a new relationship, um, I would advise to just be very careful. Really, really consider this because with Mercury retrograde, a lot of things happen that we may go back on later, or things may not be what we expected. So, if it really, really feels right and you say, like, no, I really think this is a good job, I think this is a new relationship that's developing in my life, I would say go for it, but be very thorough. Okay, make sure that you're really evaluating everything two times, three times over. And also, the second piece of advice I have is be prepared for delays. Okay, I myself have started jobs in particular when Mercury was retrograde, and I can tell you from experience, and I've seen it with other people as well, the delays are real. There are a lot of delays with Mercury retrograde. So that's what I would say. Be thorough and be prepared for delays if you are initiating something with this Mercury retrograde. Sometimes we have to do that. We have to do what we gotta do. But that's kind of the gist of what's happening. So we're really in the middle of this shitstorm, so to speak. Lastly, then this is kind of a sub note. It's not as intense as these other things that are going on, but we do have a third quarter moon happening as well at the very end of the week that this will cover. and it is at 1 degree Pisces. And like I say, the star of the show, the main focus, the thing that's really changing everything for us is, of course, the full moon lunar eclipse. But definitely don't neglect paying attention to that third quarter moon as well, because it will also kind of change things a lot, especially if you have planets right around 1 degree of the mutable signs. So that would be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, because that third quarter moon will, directly affect you. And that goes for any aspect as well. Just make sure you're kind of seeing how these affect your own chart if you want to get more information on how these things affect you personally. All right, but that's enough said. Let's get into the more specifics here. So we start out Monday, May 16th. We start out Monday, May 16th with the full moon lunar eclipse, and I have, typically I'll put the chart right around noon to get kind of the middle of the day, but I've set it here just after midnight because that's when this full moon lunar eclipse happens. So right now you're seeing the chart of the full moon lunar eclipse. It's happening at 25 degrees Scorpio, so it's making that exact opposition to the sun at 25 degrees Taurus. And it's very close, the sun and moon are very close to the nodes, and that's basically what an eclipse is. It's a new or full moon where both the sun and the moon are very close to the nodes. And this one is very close, even for an eclipse. You may remember we had a new moon solar eclipse just a couple weeks ago, and that one was much farther from the nodes. So that's one reason why I'm saying this eclipse in particular is very intense. It's not something to mess around with. It's something that will really demand to be known and change things. Now, okay, and I guess getting into this more, it's hard for me to even know how to tackle this, but the main thing is that the full moon in Scorpio, any full moon, but especially this eclipse, this is kind of like a super full moon, you could say. It's the moon is being lit up by the sun, literally, physically, but what that kind of translates as in astrology is that the sun is shining a light on these Scorpio themes. And I think that's especially powerful and provocative because Scorpio deals with things that are typically kind of hidden or they're covert. Scorpio likes to uncover the truth, but it also sometimes likes to cover the truth as well, just depending on its motivation. So with this eclipse, there is a very high probability of you discovering some things you may have not expected. So things about your life, things that are going on with your relationships. Again, a lot of this has to do with how you support yourself. So I don't know, maybe there's something going on that you just haven't really appreciated or realized. And right now, there's just a very strong probability you'll just get increased consciousness. And I always say, with that increased consciousness comes discomfort because it changes things. It asks us to make change, basically. What may have been satisfactory for you before in your life may suddenly not be now. And, with that information, you do have to make change. That can be difficult, but it's necessary in order to create a better life for ourselves and to create an opening or to welcome increased consciousness, basically. Another reason for all this that I'm saying with the increased consciousness and awareness, uncovering secrets or discovering things, another reason for all of that is the moon is opposing Uranus. It's not exact. It's got a 10-degree orb, but it's still within range, I would say. The moon travels so fast that I apply a pretty large orb to it with these aspects. So that is one major thing that just creates that probability even more of discovering new things. That's kind of what Uranus is all about. And this is the kind of discovery that will, take you kind of off guard. That's the whole reason for making videos like this, to try to I don't know, at least you can know what to expect. But with Uranus, expect the unexpected. You will uncover new things, but these may be truths or perceptions that you're not even necessarily seeking. It's not like you're putting all this work into uncovering a secret necessarily, although it can be that. But what I would mostly expect is just kind of walking into huge new awakenings. It's not something you necessarily have to work for. It's something that will catch you off guard. So just be aware of that. One other reason that this eclipse is very intense is because it does make an aspect that's much more exact than Uranus opposing the moon, and that would be Saturn making a T-square to the moon and the sun. So in other words, the full moon lunar eclipse is squaring Saturn. It's got an orb of 1 degree, so it's very close to exact. Saturn at 24 degrees Aquarius, the full moon lunar eclipse at 25 degrees Scorpio. So T-squares are uncomfortable. They're anxious. You can even see it by this kind of glaring red line here. I think that's a pretty accurate depiction of it, because that's kind of the energy of it. It is intense, it's uncomfortable, and with square aspects, they're uncomfortable because they ask us to change things. They say, there needs to be change. So it's disruptive, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The status quo is no longer good enough. We have to adapt. We have to make change. We have to adapt to these new circumstances. And in particular, with Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn's been in Aquarius for the better part of the last 2 years. I believe it entered in December 2019, I believe. And since then, we've had a lot of restrictions with our ability to gather into groups or also to share information online. All of these, tropes or ideas, these themes of gathering into groups and sharing information is kind of what Aquarius is all about. Aquarius also has a lot to do with technology. So my point is, Saturn has been putting restrictions on all of that for us. Saturn has been asking us to grow and improve relative to these very challenging circumstances that have been thrown at us in these areas. And now with this T square, some of what we're realizing and being awakened to will be, related to this. We'll maybe figure out a lot more about what has happened. And again, you can look, where does Aquarius fall in your own chart? You can see where Saturn is asking you to grow up, to be more mature. It's definitely not an easy task, but if we utilize Saturn's energy, we can become greater. We can become wiser and stronger. So that's kind of the silver lining to this aspect, I would say. But don't get me wrong, this will be challenging. This will be hard. The more we can kind of accept this and be open to it, the more easy or beneficial I think it can be. So that's kind of my motivation for saying all this. Let's go just 12 hours ahead to see the midday chart for Monday. We do have, because this eclipse is happening so late in Scorpio, the moon enters Sagittarius very early, before noon Eastern Standard Time. And sometimes I would say that this would lessen the intensity of the eclipse because the moon has left that sign, it's entered a different sign. But in this case, this is a full moon lunar eclipse. It's so intense, and the moon will still be very full at this point. I would say the intensity will remain. And also, Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's it's very outgoing. It's very dramatic, and so this is not at all the most mild or vanilla sign for the moon to be in, especially just after this intensity, this intense eclipse we've just had. So I would say for Monday, expect the unexpected. Things will be crazy. Things that are almost seemingly impossible or unlikely during a normal day are suddenly just up for grabs or very probable on a day like this. So be careful. Don't push yourself too hard, and I think don't get frustrated if this doesn't all make sense right away, because it just won't. This is something that we're working through. It's going to take time. Things will settle down by the time the moon comes around in 2 weeks and it approaches the sun again. By that time, we'll fully have adjusted, ideally, to this full moon lunar eclipse. So just give it time, basically. Same with Mercury Retrograde. Mercury just recently turned retrograde last week. Give it time. It's asking for us to go back and to reevaluate things. That's definitely no easy task. So I guess that's all I can say is adapt as best you can. And if there's anything to look forward to, it would be that increased awareness. This is a great time for figuring things out and making huge leaps in consciousness. All right, that was quite the mouthful. Let's go forward to Tuesday, May 17th. We have the moon continuing through Sagittarius, and it is kind of nice. It's not making a major aspect with the sun, but like I said, we're still coming off that really heightened intensity. I think our nerves might be a little fried on Tuesday, and I think we're wanting stability, but we won't necessarily get that yet. The full moon lunar eclipse is over, but we're still in the midst of the whole cycle. So yes, it's not as acute as it was on Monday, but we're still, very much in the midst of this storm, of this, I'm almost picturing like a dust storm. There's so much changing right now. It's very turbulent, and we can't see very clearly just yet. However, the sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Sagittarius. Both are ruled by benefics, so they're relatively easy signs. I think that does make things a little bit easier to handle, or maybe a tiny bit pleasant. Just because everything is crazy and up in the air doesn't mean we can't have a good time, of course. Don't get too crazy with that, because both Taurus and Sagittarius can have a tendency to overindulge. but there is that chance, if we kind of, detach a little bit from the craziness, we can maybe have a good time here. But the intensity remains here pretty much going into Tuesday. Right. Wednesday, May 18th, we have the moon entering Capricorn. You can see right about midday Eastern Standard Time. And this typically is uncomfortable since the moon is in detriment there. We feel kind of uneasy, or, Capricorn asks us to work toward the long term, and we can't always just do what we feel in the moment. So the moon has a hard time with that. Emotionally, we want to just acknowledge and pursue our feelings in the moment. So it can be difficult having moon in Capricorn. However, this is the blow is lessened a little bit because Sun is in Taurus, so they do make a trine, not by aspect, but at least by sign. Sun is in an Earth sign, Moon is in an Earth sign. So if you can, really take advantage of those Earth themes, those Earth elements, if you can literally spend time in nature, that would be extra beneficial, I think, and especially that would be a great thing to do to get clarity on all this that's changing right now. Besides spending time on Earth, the Earth signs also like to work on projects. They like to work toward the future. They like managing their resources well, which I think is another kind of key word. That's something that we're really dealing with right now. Changes to resources, the supply chain, how we manage our money, how we take care of ourselves, all of that. That's something that Earth signs naturally focus on. Um, all right, and then we also have one aspect that would be Mars conjoining Neptune at 25 degrees Pisces. And it's interesting because if that eclipse that just happened on Monday, if it was happening on Wednesday, it would exactly make it, not a T-square, but it would exactly aspect the Mars-Neptune conjunction. So it's kind of interesting. There may be something that is triggered on Wednesday that didn't quite happen on Monday. Or a better way of saying that is, the full moon lunar eclipse kind of changed everything on Monday, but there may have been something that, there was some lag time where it didn't quite erupt to its fullest extent until Wednesday, because, like I said, this aspect does make a direct aspect to where the full moon lunar eclipse did happen. Other than that, Mars conjoining Neptune is volatile again. I hate to say, Neptune makes things kind of confusing or dreamy. It's hard to be practical with Neptunian energies, especially since this is happening in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune. And with Mars, Mars likes to make things volatile. It likes to take action. It doesn't like to think things through. So combining Mars and Neptune in Pisces, I would be cautious. It would be very easy to get, for example, to get very upset over something that may or may not really deserve that much attention or energy. It may be very easy to either have rose-colored glasses or to be completely pessimistic when in reality, things are not necessarily that dramatic or extreme. Another probability that can happen with Mars aspects in general is accidents. Okay, so with Mars conjoining Neptune, there could be violent accidents. Not only tempers flying, but also physical accidents as well. And when I say stuff like this, I don't want to be proven, accurate. I don't want to be right about this. I'm saying this so that we can, I don't know, maybe take it a little easy on Wednesday. Pisces also has to do with the subconscious and the, mental and emotional health. So there can be accidents or flare-ups with things of that nature on Wednesday as well. So, all I could say is, maybe just take it easy on Wednesday. Don't do anything too extreme or risky. And if you can have an easy day physically and mentally and emotionally, that I think that would be especially wise on Wednesday, just because um, this aspect is particularly volatile and confusing. Okay, let's go forward. That's all we can do, really. Thursday, May 19th. Moon continues through Capricorn, and it gets closer to trining the sun. Pretty close, and so we can feel a little bit stronger. Maybe, the moods, the vibes are a little bit more uplifted. We're feeling more strong. There's a little bit of stability. Now, we're still in the midst of a lot of changes, but, relative to a couple days ago and relative to a couple days from now, Thursday does look relatively stable. Everything's relative, so I want to make that clear. Other than that, though, we have a couple aspects. Sun at 28 degrees Taurus makes an exact trine to 28 degrees Capricorn, where Pluto is. And so there can be some kind of positive developments with our hierarchies, with our, this is like the structure of society ruled by Pluto and Capricorn, the hierarchies, the authority figures, the leaders. And the sun often represents kind of the common people, I guess. If Pluto is more like the elite class and whoever's controlling things behind the scenes, sun is more, where us common folk are on a more basic level. So this trine is showing that there's actually a harmonious relationship there. I want to be cautious in what I'm saying because I don't know how optimistic I am with that, but this does look like it would be relatively stable. Our economics, our finances, how we're supporting ourselves, might be relatively stable on this day. And besides that aspect, we do have Mercury has just, it's traveling backward, it's retrograding. It's now at 1 degree Gemini, and it makes a sextile to Jupiter at 1 degree Aries. Okay, so um, honestly, I really like this. Mercury is in domicile Gemini. Yes, it is retrograde, so it's acting a little bit differently than it otherwise, might typically in Gemini. And Jupiter's not in domicile in Aries, but it does well there. Jupiter wants expansion and growth. It wants to, get out and explore the world. And Aries very much shares a lot of these same things as well. Mercury and Jupiter, I would say, are generally kind of opposing forces, but both are inviting us, or they're the side of ourselves that wants to learn and to expand our consciousness, kind of. Mercury wants to learn more through like information and knowledge, and Jupiter's more about wisdom or life experience. And although they are opposing forces, they actually blend together pretty well because of that shared openness and versatility and that focus on learning. So with Mercury retrograde in Gemini, it's asking us to rethink, maybe information that we've come across, rethink our friendships, our relationships, all these kind of Geminian themes. And then Jupiter in Aries is asking us to kind of begin everything. Aries begins everything, kind of, and it begins self-expression. Now, the limits, or the possibilities with self-expression are endless. You can express yourself in any kind of way. You can explore however you want to. That's what Aries kind of teaches us, and especially with Jupiter kind of putting fuel on the fire. Um, it's it's a very enthusiastic, optimistic energy, and as the sextile happens with Mercury, I think we are revisiting things, maybe re-examining parts of our lives, but in a way that is somehow still expansive. You can't deny that Jupiter and Aries expansion and optimism. So I do really like that aspect. It's one that's relatively easy to experience, and as difficult as Mercury retrograde can be for us, I think getting this little Jupiter aspect, since Jupiter is so kind of an easy teacher, it just wants us to expand and try new things. I think this lessens the blow and it makes these Mercury retrograde themes that we're experiencing a little bit easier. So that's definitely something to look forward to on Thursday. Friday, May 20th. Sun enters Gemini. I can't believe I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning. There's so much going on here. But Sun enters Gemini. So this starts a new sign, a new season, as we like to say in astrology, new Gemini season. Happy birthday, Gemini suns. You've got birthdays coming up here. And this also means in the Northern Hemisphere that we are entering the third trimester of spring. So what that really means is, something new, a lot of new energies have taken root and become birthed back in Aries season. They really got a lot more structure and stabilized themselves in Taurus. And then now as we enter Gemini, we are learning to accept more diversification, more versatility and variety. So we're really kind of expanding things. And, Gemini is a curious sign. So this is something we experience in a way that's, we're curious. We want to try new things. And Gemini is known to be a very social sign because what better way of trying new things or picking up new information than by, speaking to one another. There's that curiosity and that enthusiasm, that intellectual enthusiasm that Gemini brings. So we can experience that for the next month. Typically, I mean, Gemini is a fun sign. Right now, though, with all the context, I think this brings a lot of it brings a lot more stuff. Gemini is a mutable sign. It's kind of an eclectic sign. It's kind of just it wants to try a little bit of everything. Okay, so as we gain this new mentality and this new collective consciousness, um, I'm just approaching this a little tentatively because we already have so much on our plate, I guess is what it comes down to. The silver lining is, at least with Gemini, we are more welcoming of change because Gemini has to do with, information and social connections, and these things were more, they're more kind of set up for change. We can get new information or we can make new acquaintances. That's pretty normal. So at least we can be a little bit less perturbed by the changes that were happening on the Taurus Scorpio axis, which again, that more pertains to how we support ourselves emotionally and financially. So it is more difficult to change there. Okay, so in short, Sun entering Gemini does give us a lot more to work with. There's a lot more on our plates now, as if we didn't already have enough. But on the positive side, this change will at least be theoretically easier because Gemini itself is a sign conducive to change. Okay, and then also on, let's see, I'm losing track. Also on Friday, we have Moon entering Aquarius, and this is really beautiful. We finally get that exact trine between the Moon and the Sun. It was really close when the Moon was in Capricorn and Sun was in Taurus, and then they both changed signs almost at the same time. And they make that exact trine aspect right around the Taurus, or excuse me, right around the Capricorn Aquarius cusp for the Moon, and the Taurus Gemini cusp for the Sun. So this too kind of aids the process. Entering Gemini will be relatively easy. The Moon is supporting this energy, so we can feel relatively stable. Sun trining Moon or vice versa is always generally an easy energy to experience. We feel stable, we feel strong with this aspect happening here. Saturday, May 21st, Sun conjoins Mercury retrograde. I don't know which one of them really initiates that aspect since they both are approaching one another. Mercury's going backward, it's about to enter Taurus. Sun is going, of course, forward like it always does, it just entered Gemini. So they both meet at 0 degrees Gemini, which to me is very interesting. It's very interesting when conjunctions happen right around the first or last degrees of signs in general. The reason why is because, in this case, the first degree introduces something new. And yes, Mercury is going backwards, so it's about to enter the last part of Taurus. But still, there's something new that kind of comes to light here, again, on Saturday, May 21st. And again, I think we've already realized a lot by this point. By Saturday, a lot has happened, a lot has changed. By Saturday, if you look back 1 week, I think it will kind of be shocking to you just how much has changed, how many things have happened. But still, Saturday, something new comes along. So I think, again, this looks intellectual. 0 degrees Gemini, maybe some kind of new information, new kind of realization, some kind of new way of thinking about things or analyzing. And it can also be social as well. Gemini pertains a lot to friendships, acquaintances, siblings. It's more kind of light relationships or connections. So there may be new developments in those areas. That's where you can kind of look to. And this is strengthened too by the Moon in Aquarius. Moon is also in an air sign. It's kind of asking us to be a little bit more provocative or to get kind of quirky or outside of our comfort zone. Aquarius likes to make things a little weird. Definitely doesn't shy away from a little weirdness. So I think on May 21st, we may be tired. There may have been a lot of developments that have happened. I think it's a lot for us. But there's also a sense of curiosity and wonder that remains with these air signs. And I would say too, air signs, we can get very worked up, a little bit like fire signs, but opposite, I guess. There's so much mental energy. There's so much frenetic energy. I would say, just avoid burnout if you can. If you can kind of go into slower states of consciousness right now, it will really help to ease the process and it will help you to integrate, basically, to accept things that have happened, to integrate, and to turn that new experience into wisdom that you can apply. All right. Sunday, May 22nd, we have a few aspects happening right now. Moon and Mercury change signs today, so we have Moon leaving Aquarius and entering Pisces, and pretty much as soon as it does enter Pisces, it makes that square aspect to the Sun. So we do have a third quarter Moon at 1 degree Pisces. It's called a quarter moon, but it will appear half lit in the sky. The reason why is because it's another quarter through its cycle. It's 3/4 of the way through the lunar cycle. All right. So about a week ago, we had the full moon lunar eclipse that was this kind of culmination or this explosion of new energy. a week later, now we have the third quarter moon, which is really kind of the last chance to make changes to what has come about from this lunar cycle. All right, so what has occurred for you in the last 3 weeks from May 21st? So you can basically say what has happened for you in May in general. What kind of new developments have happened? Because whatever has happened that, really started on May 1st and got really going around May 7th or May 8th and then culminated May 16th, now's the time to make last minute changes to those developments. The third quarter moon is also very philosophical, so it is action oriented, much like the first quarter moon, but it's not just about physical action. It's more contemplative. It's more inquisitive or mentally curious, philosophical. We're beginning the close now. We're now in the last quarter of the lunar cycle, so we're beginning to close everything, integrate everything, and believe me, there's a lot that we're integrating right now. There's so much, but we're beginning to integrate all that and prepare for the new moon that will happen in Gemini 1 week from today. All right, and then I also said Mercury does change signs, so it leaves Gemini and enters Taurus. And like I said, Mercury was just in Taurus not too long ago, but then now it's retrograded and gone back. It's revisiting Taurus. So what has happened with Taurus themes that we did not appreciate or we did not fully understand? Again, Taurus really rules how we support ourselves. How do you support yourself financially? How do you support yourself emotionally? Taurus likes to be kind of independent, and it's all about supporting itself. A lot of that is pleasurable. Taurus likes to experience comfortable clothes and delicious foods and all that, but it's really about the beauty of supporting yourself. That's all. It's all about kind of grounding your identity, really. So Mercury going back to Taurus, I think it's asking us to reevaluate those things. Are you truly looking after yourself? Do your relationships support you? What are you missing in that regard? Are you taking the time for yourself? A lot of it is resources as well, not just money, but time and energy. Are you investing in what is truly for your own benefit? And a lot of people that are into astrology are empaths, so we have trouble with this, I think. I can say generally, we don't always so readily take care of ourselves. We can take care of other people. So maybe now is the time to just reevaluate things. I'm not saying to be like a huge dick or anything, but just kind of, go back and ask yourself, are you truly working in your own best interest? One last thing about that is, Taurus is very grounded. It's very receptive to others as well. It's not, at all a selfish sign. It's just very firm in knowing what it needs and what it doesn't, So that's what this is asking of us. Okay, and then the last aspect here is Mars at 28 degrees Pisces makes a sextile to 28 degrees, to Pluto at 28 degrees Capricorn. This is very interesting. So they're not at the last degrees of their signs, but they're at the second to last degree, so pretty close. The last part of the sign gets very intense because there's sort of a test. We have to integrate everything that happened during that planet's transit through the entire sign. And with Mars and Pisces, it's really been asking us to explore new frontiers involving our spirituality and our consciousness, to demand more in those areas. And Pluto in Capricorn, where it's been since 2008, has kind of been breaking down our whole structure to society. We've become a lot less naive in terms of knowing how our system works and knowing the kind of corruption there, I guess you could say. So it's very interesting. Mars making the sextile. On the one hand, this can be very volatile. There can be information or themes of a spiritual nature that are disrupting the governments, disrupting the authorities in our lives and our societies. This does look very disruptive to me. On the other hand, this is a sextile. Sextiles are harmonious aspects, so there can be maybe something disruptive, but simultaneously beneficial. I think it's hard to just to divide things into good or bad. It's not ever that simple. But this may be a large part of getting a little bit closer, maybe destroying the bad or destroying what is corrupt or untrue with our world, with our belief systems, with our authority figures and our governments. Destroying some of that, but in a way doing so to make room for something new of higher integrity. And again, this is from a kind of spiritual standpoint. So maybe some kind of truth trickling out, I would expect here on Sunday. That's what I have for you this week. I know this is a lot. I almost feel bad as if I'm doing it, but I'm just the messenger. I'm not at all inventing this. I think just a couple months ago I was saying things were kind of bland almost. Things were a little bit boring. But you always have to appreciate those times because, like I said, there's always intensity just around the corner. We're experiencing so much in this lifetime, in this crazy, crazy time that we've all incarnated in. And here you go, not too long after that, and we've got planets turning retrograde. We've got Mercury retrograde, the eclipses. It's really crazy. I know this is a lot. I'd say really take time for yourself. Take time to just have moments of peace or calm because that's the only way we can integrate and increase our consciousness. Uh, Next week, we do have two planets changing signs, and this is really good news. I definitely don't feel bad about this at all. We have Mars entering Aries and Venus entering Taurus. Now, as soon as I saw this, I was pretty pretty excited just because Mars is of course in domicile in Aries just as Venus is in domicile in Taurus. So this means is that these energies are very easy for us to understand. It means that Venus and Mars will soon be acting just as we kind of expect them to. So things are very literal. We're feeling very, ourselves, we're feeling in our bodies. Things can make a little bit more sense, especially in terms of desire, attraction, and ambition, which Venus and Mars represent. So things will be a little bit clearer there and maybe more easily enjoyable, I would say. So definitely something to look forward to. But at any rate, definitely thanks for watching and listening. I hope this has helped you. I hope this has painted some kind of clarity for you at the very least. Okay, and I'll be in touch very soon. Take care.